Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the AI42 show. I'm very happy to have you all with us. And Håkan, how an amazing last half year we had just now with so amazing speakers and sessions.
And we're also very thankful for everyone who has tuned in both to our live sessions, but also to all of those who have watched our recordings on our YouTube channel. So we're really happy that you've enjoyed our content. And as a way of giving back to you, we've organized these panel discussions here. So we've gathered 4 of our previous amazing speakers here for you tonight.
Yes, and this is a very special evening for us, actually, because we are tuning in from Scandinavia, from Europe, but our speakers are coming from all around the world. And that's amazing, right? That's very important nowadays to include people from everywhere around the world. Wherever you are, whoever you are, you should be included in this community. And we are very happy to include all of you as well in our community. And we're very happy that you are here, and we hope you'll enjoy our future sessions as well in the next half year.
Yeah, and I think before we start this thing off, we will just give you some basic information and background here about us.
Hello back, everyone. Håkan, I think it's a good idea to start with what was our motivation to start AI42.
Yes, so the idea here with AI42 is we would like to give everyone a chance to get into this interesting field of AI and machine learning. So what we've done here is we've gathered a set of speakers, industry experts and recognized speakers that will have sessions that we will stream 2 times a month, 5:00 p.m. Central European Time here on Wednesdays. And what we did is we've started out with mathematics and with statistics and probability theory to give you a good ground or give you good basics for understanding. And then we moved into languages. So we've talked about Python and we talked about R. And we also have moved into SQL. And we're going to look at more into tools like Power BI and Databricks. And then moving on, we'll also have a look at how you can set up your own machine learning pipeline and other more advanced topics like reinforcement learning. And in addition to these sessions, we will also have workshops where you can try out this theory into practice. So how can people find out more information about us, Eve?
So you can follow us at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well. And you can also find our previous sessions as recordings on YouTube if you follow the link by scanning the QR code on the screen. And you can also see our upcoming events, and that you can do by scanning the QR code under the Meetup logo on the screen.
Yes, and we would also like to take the opportunity here to thank our sponsors. So we're sponsored by Microsoft and we're also sponsored by Miles.
And we are supported by some amazing communities as well, such as Global AI Community and C# Corner. And with that, we also want to say thank you to our supporters. The intro music composed and performed by Mina Mari that we use during our streams. And all the graphics are done by Levente Pongor. And I also want to say a big thank you to another person as well who is not shown on the screen actually, but she also helped us a lot by putting together our own text descriptions and all the textual information connected to AI42. So thank you again for everyone.
And I would also like to explain to you that we will have a mini conference called RLML, Real Life Machine Learning, where we will invite speakers who can give you more information about how you actually use machine learning in real life scenarios, in industrial scenarios. So that will be on September 8th. So we'll have 3 speakers from different industries, and in addition we will have a concluding panel debate. So if you have anything that you would like to share, our CFP is open, and we'll post a link into the chat during this stream so that you can send in your CFP. So with that, should we get back to our speakers?
I think it's a good idea. Hi and welcome back everyone, and I think it is a good time to start inviting in our speakers, right? Because first of all, we had Heini, who was with us for 5 mathematics sessions, and she is a Microsoft certified trainer and an Azure solution architect expert, and she has a background in mathematics and teaching. She is a DevOps consultant, right, at Polar Squad, and she is also specialized in Azure infrastructure and the data platform. So Heini, how do you feel today? How does it feel to come back to AI42?
It's really wonderful to be back. So thank you for having me. And I think it's such a great discussion to have about like how to get into the career. So I'm super happy to be here and great to see both of you again.
Great. That's really good to hear that you're also excited. And yes. I think it is a good time to show you also our next guest today, who's going to be JP, who is showing us how to use Transact SQL, because he is also one of our speakers at AI42, and he is a South African data tinkerer and Microsoft fanboy, right? And he works as a data engineer right now. He is also the leader for the Johannesburg Data Platform User Group and a Formula One enthusiast and a father. So welcome back, Jean-Pierre. How are you feeling today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for inviting me back.
It's amazing to have you back, actually.
And then we can also introduce our third speaker, which is Wei-Meng Lee. So let us add him here to the stream. So Wei-Meng, he is a technologist and also a founder of his own company, the Developer Learning Solutions, that specializes on hands-on training on the latest technologies. And Wei-Meng is also a frequent speaker and educator at big conferences all around the world, like for example the NDC conference, DevX, MobiForge and so on. So welcome, Wei-Meng.
Thank you very much.
And then finally we have our last speaker here, our last panelist, which is Seth Juarez. He is working at Microsoft, and he's interested in artificial intelligence and specifically in machine learning, and he's based in Redmond, Washington.
Hello, my friends.
Wow, welcome back everyone. It's so amazing to see you at one place now. We learned a lot from you in the last few months, and we want to say a big thank you for that. And right now, I think it is a good opportunity to share with our audience. How did you actually get into the career of AI and data science? I think we could go like one by one in the order of calling you in.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so Heini, you're first.
Slow here. So, I studied mathematics, so I very much come from that background as well. So, that I did not study the tech side, which I am actually doing now, but I studied mathematics and learned all up from that side, and then I got into IT. And then I started to figure out, well, there's this place that kind of overlaps with my past kind of what I did, and then what I'm doing currently. And it kind of, I feel like the overlapping area is exactly like machine learning and AI and all that, because there I can leverage both my skills in mathematics and also kind of my Azure knowledge and architecture knowledge on the IT side. And so now I'm more actually focusing on the DevOps side, so more like how do you take things into production? How do you make that algorithm part of your application, for example? So now I'm more focusing on that area currently. But it's kind of nice to know the background of like, how do the algorithms work, and it's kind of neat.
That's a really interesting story. Thank you for sharing. I think we can ask also JP. Like, tell us about how did you get into your career?
Unfortunately, my story is not as exciting as this one. But from my perspective, I studied software engineering, finished my degree in software engineering, and my first internship, I was lucky enough to land a job in business intelligence. And from there, one thing led to another. Became a data analyst. Became a data engineer for a major credit bureau here in South Africa, or actually international credit bureau, and the job progression just pushed into that direction, and sort of found it very fascinating because the software engineering side of me loves solving problems, and the data engineer in me loves solving problems and understanding the data. So it's like a double complexity in the way I see this.
Nice, thank you. And then we have Wei-Meng. Can you tell us a little bit how did you get into this career field?
Okay, so I'm going to take the next 30 minutes telling you about my history. That's just 2 minutes. So I was primarily a developer. So I started off with Pocket PC. I'm not too sure how many of you actually remember Microsoft Pocket PC, and then Windows Mobile, and then I got into iOS development, Android development, stuff like this. So for a long time, I was doing developers training. So I was training developers on how to write applications quickly, understand difficult topics very quickly. And then I think about 7 to 8 years ago, suddenly this language, Python, became very, very popular. So I started to explore Python and see what it could do. And then I discovered that, hey, there's something that is super exciting. We have a lot of data. Companies are accumulating a lot of data, but companies are not knowing how to make use of the data. They are sitting on a gold mine. And at that time, the problem was a lot of developers are not mathematically inclined. So when it comes to, I think Heini is going to laugh at this, and a lot of developers are very, 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 very challenged by the mathematical formulas. So I wanted to be the middleman to bring two groups of people together. So I want the developers to be able to quickly make use of the algorithms that have already been implemented, like linear regression, logistic regression, or the various libraries in the sklearn library. So I wanted to make it easy for developers to actually start exploring the data that they have. And that is how I got started into data science, data analytics, and then I went into machine learning. And then more recently, I am super excited with deep learning, where you can actually use deep learning to train neural networks to do face recognition, stuff like this. So I think this is how I got started. So that's the end of my life story.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was also a really interesting story.
Thank you.
And we also have Seth. Maybe you should also share your story.
Such a beautiful story. I teared up a little. Hi, I'm Seth. I went to school. I started as a civil engineer in school, and then I realized I didn't want to play with dirt the rest of my life. And so I transitioned over to computer science. And with computer science, it turns out that because I started with civil engineering, I had to take so much math. And then because I did computer science, I had to take so much math that in the end, like, they were like, oh, you also minored in math. Good for you. And so I have a minor in math. I was a .NET dev for, 10 years. And then I was like, I want to go back to computer science school. And so I went back to do my master's degree. And I remember there was one class, it was called machine learning. And this is before anyone thought it was cool. This is like 2006-ish, maybe 2007, when it wasn't even a twinkle in people's eyes. And I remember implementing the k-means algorithm, which is really dumb. It's basically a clustering algorithm. And I wrote it in MATLAB. And I saw, because every step I made it draw everything out. And I saw the computer thinking, even though I knew exactly what it's the dumbest algorithm. It's not There's like really like middle school math. But as I saw it like figure out the centers of clusters, I was like, this is for me. And so I did a master's degree in machine learning. I was there for a doctorate. I was in a doctorate program for 2 years, and then my advisor left, and so I was like, I need to get a job. And so I was an analytics program manager for a little bit, and then I got hired by Microsoft to lead. I got hired by Microsoft to do Channel 9, which is a developer channel, and then after that, I moved over into developer relations, and now I lead DevRel for Microsoft when it comes to AI and machine learning.
Nice.
That's yes. And for I think for all of you always had that feeling when you were like trying to try to keep up to date, right? Because I think you also see like that AI and data science stuff, machine learning as a thing is very like moving forward very quickly, and that is for some people it's very difficult to follow and to keep up. And do you have any suggestions? How should our audience try to keep up? Like, how do you keep up with all the news that we have to deal with in the field?
I can answer that. I don't. It's too much. It's like saying there's a brand new language, like let's just say Rust, which is a new C-based language. Is everyone going to go rush off and learn Rust? I mean, I haven't yet because I haven't needed to. But the reality is that you will, or at least me, when I say you, I mean me, I learn stuff better when I have a need to use it, right? And so if there's something that you need to do in your business and machine learning is a solution, you should totally look into everything. So for example, the stuff that works kind of well in machine learning, there's pretty good division. There's like vision, there's like speech, there's like language. And so if you have problems like those, they're pretty, you should look at that because they all have their own little paths. And like I've always said, machine learning is just a lazy way of writing functions with data. Once you think of it like that, then everything makes sense. What kind of function do you want to write? And so the reality is I can't keep up, and I read a lot, and that's where I'm at.
And sir, I want to add to that. So join a community. That's one of the best places to keep up. Join a community. I take 15 minutes of every day just reading up on a quick article on Data Science Central or T-SQL Central or any of those big forums, or just join a community. There's a lot of information out there.
Yeah. What I recommend doing, or what I do, is I try to have, because as Seth said, it's kind of impossible to keep up with everything, is that I like to have like a broad area of where I know the basics and know the basics well, because then even if things change, they still relate to the basics in a way, and I have like connecting points to those new things that come up. And then I do the same, that I kind of learn what I need and go from there. So, but it's kind of good to have a foundation of the basics in a good way, and that will kind of anchor you in whatever else happens around and new things show up.
Yeah, so basically I agree with what you guys have said. Basically, I think the world is changing too rapidly. There is absolutely no way to know everything. But I think one good way would be to read widely, to have a pulse on the industry and to see where the trends are moving. So from my perspective, because I do developers training, so I like to monitor the industry trend, which areas people are focusing on right now. And I think choose one or two topics that you're good in, focus on that. And then I think the most important thing is to get your hands dirty. When you get your hands dirty, you will explore further. And I think by doing that, you will have a chance to learn more deeply. And I think the next advice is read widely as much as you can.
Yes.
Thank you. I think we
yes,
can also...
I'm sorry, just a catch up here, because like I was just thinking about that was a really good point that you guys pointed out here, that we actually need to focus on things, and that's very important, really, because it's not like we are watching the news and see what is so interesting or whatever, but as you guys taught us now, that it's like we are focusing on some things that we are interested in, and let's be experts in that. That is very important. Yes, I think yes, we can move on to the next question. I just really wanted to point this out. It's
I think we can actually take one. We got a question here from the audience that I think is interesting. We can take up here. So the question is from Gabriel Borja. He says, do you think that the computer science degree is needed to shift into the field of AI or data science? What do we think about that? Maybe Heini, do you want to say something?
I don't have a computer science degree. And I would say that the way I work with the data world or the AI world is very computer science heavily oriented, actually, on the very like infrastructure and what services do you have the algorithms running on and so forth. So I think if you're really like interested and excited on the topic, you can definitely pick it up.
My entire
and so forth.
My entire team comprises of microbiologists, quantity surveyors, accountants. We've hired from all over, and I have a team of 18 data engineers, then data scientists, and only one has a degree in data science, and I'm the only one with a degree in software engineering. All the rest comes from all other walks of life.
Yeah, interestingly, I for the past 1-2 years, I have been teaching a series of courses on data analytics to a particular company, a bank in Singapore. And in fact, my participants come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some are investment bankers, some are they don't come from computer science background. So in the end, at the end of the series of courses, I think they are data analysts, we can say that. But I think the only advantage of having a CS degree is that it can jumpstart you. But then if you don't have a CS degree, I think it doesn't really matter as long as you're willing to work hard. Yeah. I think that is not a hurdle.
100%. I have someone on my team that I'll tell you a story. I went to give a talk somewhere in the United States about machine learning, and every time you give a talk about machine learning, there's always like some dude that's like, aren't you worried that the robots are going to take over and Skynet? And then I realized that these aren't serious, like they don't really quite understand what this thing is doing. I'm surprised it mildly works sometimes. And this person came up to me and she started asking, about learning rates and the optimization loop. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Where'd you go to school to learn this? She's like, I didn't go to school for computers. She hadn't even gone to college all the way. I think she had an associate's degree. And I was like, so you basically, and then I said, well, how'd you figure this out? She's like, well, at work, I had to do this thing. And so I had to figure it out in a week or two. And so I did, and I implemented it. And I was like, so you figured out in a week or two what I went to college for 10 years for. She's like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, we're going to hire you. And so now she's on our team. And she basically helps Microsoft set what we're going to do when it comes to machine learning and AI. So the reality is you do not need a degree. You might not even need a full college degree. You just need it takes a lot of, you got to pay the price. And when it comes to anything that's worthwhile in life, if you want to do anything, you got to pay the price. Modulo, obviously, some people have more privilege than others, and we're happy to help lift anyone out of that if you want to help. That's why I like AI 42, because you have a group of amazing experts and me teaching you how to do AI, and it's quality stuff. And so that's why I like AI 42.
Oh, thank you. That was nice. So then let's move on to our next question. Håkan?
Yes.
What should be our next question?
Yeah, so we actually have one more question here from the audience that I can take up. If I can find the question here, it's over here. Here's a question directly to Heini, but I think everyone can actually answer this question. So if you do AI in your current project, what do you do and how does it create value?
Well, I have to say that in my current project, I don't actually do AI. It's a purely application development project, but I'll let the others go first, and then I can maybe tell about something in the past.
Yeah, this is a challenging question because, like, every time I've gone out and people are like, "Hey, here's a challenging problem," someone's like, "You should just use AI," and it's like that's not really. That's like coming up to someone and they'll be like, "Hey, I want to solve this problem," and like, "Well, you should just use a function." Well, what does that even mean, right? And the way I look at AI is it's a class of functions that are learned instead of programmed. And the reality is, if you do not have a situation where that's useful, AI is not useful. Another vector that you need to think about is if you do not have the data that it can learn from, it will also not be useful. So you might have the killer AI thing that you want to build, but if you do not have the requisite data, then it doesn't work. So I'll tell you where I'm building something right now, but I'm building it live in my AI show. Every week or so, on Fridays, we're building an AI program. And is it useful? Maybe. Is it going to be fun? Yes, for sure. Basically, I'm building a project where you go to my website and you can play rock, paper, scissors against the computer, but you literally just do. You don't push a button. It looks at you and you're like, rock, and it works. Is it useful? Maybe for a Friday afternoon during lunchtime, absolutely. But there are other projects where it's absolutely useful. We have customers, for example, social distancing rules are super important in some buildings, and we have building management people that have like cameras and AI inside of their buildings where it will alert people if they're too close. It will alert people if they're in the wrong space. It will alert people, if someone's not wearing a mask. And that is absolutely useful. We have others I know that use AI on assembly lines that look at chips, and they can tell if there's something wrong with it. Instead of having a human, look at it, the computer looks at it, and I'm a computer vision guy. That's why you can see me like veering towards that. We have some other AI that we built at Microsoft to look at forms and pull out text from handwritten forms. Absolutely incredibly useful. And you're like, well, it's taking away someone's job. And I'm saying, no, it's actually empowering humans to up-level the kind of work we do. And so hopefully that answers the question. So yes, people are actually using it for very useful things, but the people that actually use it for very useful things don't talk about it. The people that don't use it for useful things are the ones that talk about AI the most, in my opinion. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes, that is probably right, actually. I can also see that very often that even some clients are asking for a solution that is, we must use AI for something, and that's not always the solution we need to have. That's for sure. Does anyone have an answer to this question from the panel?
I just want to add one thing. I heard about this phrase, if it works, it's not AI.
I've also said,
that's nice.
I had one guy come to me like, I have this really good AI problem, and I'm like, it looks like a database lookup.
Yes.
Your AI problem. It's like a where clause in the SQL query. It's not really AI. It's just search. And they're like, oh, I'm like, you can still call it AI.
Yes, you can.
There's this comic that I read that I still remember. So this child was asking his father. He said, "Daddy, what is AI?" So his father said, "AI is if then else." And then his child asked, "What is if then else?" So his father said that if then else is AI.
It's funny you say that, because we've basically went through a project where we've been doing grouping certain individuals into certain clusters with if then else, if you want to call this, for 5-6 years, and like a segmentation of our population. And me and my team, we spent just over 6 weeks trying to redefine that entire clustering algorithm using AI. And we came to the conclusion, it worked before. Don't try to fix something that ain't broken. We couldn't cluster it better than it was done 6 years ago with simple clustering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Nice.
like I said, this guy pitched me for like a half hour, and I had our one of our DevOps guys, Damian Brady, who was also there, who brought, and then we were like, feels like it's just a database query, and they were like, oh.
It's so nice to see those reaction on their face, like, oh.
Oh yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, it would work that way. Yeah, you should use AI for what it's designed for. Anytime you go outside of it, it's usually incremental. Like, so the newest things are never, they're always incremental, and that's how you know. If it's something's completely out of left field, you're like, that's interesting, I should take another look at it. But it's always incremental. Like the coolest stuff, like big language models were built incrementally from, encoders, and sequence to sequence model. And so you'll see that, oh, I see how it got there. That's cool. What does everyone else think about that?
I think you're right about that. I think it does come a little bit like a step by step, and even in that sense, a lot of times I think AI projects that are attempting to be AI projects, they also kind of go incrementally, that you start more on the traditional data science side, and you can actually get a lot out of that already, and just get the sense that, well, I actually have valid data, and you can see things that you might not have seen before just by making the data visible and having like certain data science aspects that you use to gain more insight out of it. And then it's a lot of times these scenario areas where you're actually able to leverage AI to its fullest and really actually bring the value, and not just try to refactor a database query or something like that.
Never use deep learning when logistic regression or decision trees will do.
Yes, exactly.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I should also say here that, for those of you who are watching here, just come with your questions in the chat, because we're basically, we are here for you. So just take the chance here to ask any type of questions that you are interested in. But I think one interesting question here could also be that, what is your advice to someone who's interested in getting into this field of AI? How should they, go about that? Maybe they don't know anything about it right now, but they know that this is a field that I would like to learn more about. Do you have any advice to them?
Get a problem to solve.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I would say that, look at some kind of overview beginner course like the AI 42 and follow the past sessions, and then follow what interests you, because that way you can keep moving when there's genuine internal really excitement and interest. If it's math, go through the math channel. If it's Python and coding, go through there, and come from the angle that really works for you and excites you, because that is what will motivate you and keep you moving. You will definitely get to an end result and kind of a destination either way. It doesn't really matter. And then you just have your really kind of the core interest as your strength and your foundation for everything else.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the type of learner you are. There's two kinds. There's the top-down learner, and then there's the bottom-up learner. I tend to be the bottom-up learner. I like to know all the little things that build up to the top. Others are top-down, which is they want to solve a problem, and so they look at the problem, and then they go down to where they need to go to solve the problem. Both are legitimately fantastic. I've used both. I tend to, like I said, be a bottom-up kind of learner. And depending on the bottom up or top down, if you're a bottom up, there's some really amazing courses out there, like on Coursera. Andrew Ng has a really good starting machine learning one. If you're a top down, there's people like Jeremy Howard, right, and Fast.ai that are very good at starting with a problem and then going down the pipe. So there's so many good things. It's just important to recognize what kind of learner you are. I don't like not knowing how a thing works, and so I always like to go all the way down to the very bottom. Hence why when I teach, I try to show every almost detail as well in whatever 45 minutes allows, right?
Yes.
And Wei-Meng?
So to me, it's like if you are totally new to this field, I think first of all, what JP said is very relevant. Find a problem to solve, and once you have that problem, I think the next thing would be find something that builds your passion and you need some motivation. Find a tool that you are very comfortable with. So, for example, when I first started with machine learning, I started with Azure Machine Learning Studio. And that allows me to just drag and drop without really needing to know the nitty-gritty details. I don't need to know how linear regression is implemented. I don't have to know how logistic regression works. So once you build something, once you try it out and say, oh, okay, I can build a model, I can deploy that as a web service, I can use that to make predictions, then once you are motivated, you will be able to go into each relevant field and say, oh, okay, now I'm more interested in knowing how the mathematical formulas behind linear regression works. What is the meaning? What's the difference between linear regression, neural network, logistic regression? And then as you go further down, you might want to learn a programming language like R or Python or whatever. I think to me, that is one approach to get started, because today there are so many languages, so many tools to get started, and as a total beginner, it is not really easy. And before you learn Python, you might have dropped off halfway and say, I'm totally lost. I wouldn't want to get going anymore. So find a tool that you are comfortable with, watch some YouTube videos, build up your confidence, make sure that you're motivated, and then you'll be it will automatically drive you to want to find out more about each individual components. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so I think that's some great advice here on how you can get started. I think this ties in a little bit to another question here that we got here from.
But before doing the question, sorry, just one more thing, and I wanted to see if you agree with me. But it's learning is not always up to the videos and books and like go and study and all that. I think it is also important to be brave enough to reach out to experts if you have any questions or you want to get more out of this, because I mean you might see more practical knowledge from the experts than what you can gain from books and sessions that are built for easy understanding. Sorry for interrupting. Let's move on to the next question.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so next question is from Gabriel. He asks then, what kind of applications or portfolio would you recommend to build in order to stand out for an interview?
For me, I always look at what I like to call the delta potential in a candidate. So, for example, this person that I hired did not have any training in data science, but their delta potential was so ridiculously high that I wanted them to be on the team, right? And so I look at like how fast can someone learn and do a thing, and that is the skill you need for data science, because like I said, and there's another question in there that I was saying, do you need to have domain knowledge to do machine learning? It absolutely helps. And a really good data scientist can go into a domain, learn the domain really fast, and then apply the techniques of machine learning and AI and data science to that domain, because their delta potential is so high. And so that's what I look for. How fast can someone learn and do a thing, and then learn and do a thing well? So that's kind of like not the usual answer, but that's the one that I look for, because I don't want to be gatekeepy on like, you need to be part of some weird brotherhood of like college graduates that has a data science PhD. I don't, PhDs are very good at doing certain kinds of jobs, and sometimes they have really high delta potential. Others don't. Like just because you have a PhD doesn't make you smart. It makes you really good at hoop jumping and making sure you get papers accepted and writing a lot. And I'm telling you this because I know I didn't finish my PhD, but I was working towards a PhD, and one day maybe I'll go back and finish it, so I can actually be smart like everyone else. That's not true.
Any comments from the panelists?
Well, I can say that I went for my first interview in the field with no experience at all for a junior position, of course, because I wanted to kind of find a way to get in. And what I found was that I highlighted the aspects from my past that kind of are relevant to the field. So, for example, I did my master's thesis in elliptic curve cryptography and how that works mathematically. So I was like, that links to the IT world and security and all those things. And then I also had done some kind of hobby projects helping kind of nonprofit organizations set up databases and things like that. So I also highlighted those, even though they weren't like paid work experience. And I got comments that kind of stood out and kind of that urge to want to learn more and being able to solve problems.
I sort of agree also with Seth, because I've never hired a data scientist or a data engineer personally, because we've built or we walked the path together and got to the end. So it's that learning ability, the ability to pick up a new skill and run with it without too much of intervention. I think industry knowledge is key, but the ability to learn is far outweighs that, because you can learn the industry quite quickly.
To me, I think what you do in your spare time is very important. Whatever things you do in your spare time basically represents your passion. And if you want to stand up in an interview, I think instead of just talking about what you have done in your previous job, I think if you can showcase some interesting projects that you have built in your spare time, I think that is going to impress your future employer. And I think that shows your passion in learning things. And I strongly agree that the ability to demonstrate that you are able to learn things quickly, I think that is a very big plus point. And I think employers today are looking for this kind of characteristics. I think the ability to learn something new in a very short amount of time, and you are able to learn yourself without really needing to spend a lot of money on attending courses or whatever. I think self-learning ability is very important. That's my opinion.
And just to add one last thing to that is that, again, I want to circle back to the community. The communities you join, the seminars, the sessions you attend, you can talk to that in your interview. I can guarantee you already stand out. You in the top 10% immediately if you just in your free times attend different conferences or sessions. And majority of conferences are almost free, so it's not that it will cost you an arm or leg, and most of them are digital nowadays. So I know I can see that with everyone that I work with or interacted with. It's normally the people that excel the most is the people that go out on their own and become part of the community that their passion is in.
Yeah, just one more point. Talking about conferences, I think if you can volunteer yourself to speak at a conference, I think that adds a lot of credibility to your portfolio. Be passionate about some topics that you are willing to share the knowledge at a conference, and I think that says a lot about yourself when you go for a job interview.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of really useful information, and we still have a lot of questions from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, should we take maybe? Have you found a good one, Håkan, already, or should I choose one now?
We can take one here that I found here. So we'll shift the direction here for a moment. So this is a question from Jonah Anderson. She asks, how can AI help to overcome the problem of gender bias?
Yeah, I will say something controversial here. Sometimes AI can be used to what I like to call launder bias. It's a bias laundering machine, especially if your data is biased, which it is. Spoiler alert. And so the reality is there's a couple of ways to fix this. There are some error analysis toolkits that let you look at why your models are doing error. If you go to erroranalysis.ai, some folks at Microsoft are building it, which actually looks at your model and tells you where it's making the mistakes, and if gender has anything to do with it, you can point it out. There's also things like model explainers for black box and white box models. Lime and SHAP are the ones that are most widely known and used. And what they do is they explain a little bit why your model is making certain errors. And I know that at least in Azure Machine Learning, we can also help you create models that lower the bias at the expense of accuracy. And so you'll have the accuracy and bias, axes, X and Y, and then you can say how much is a tolerable accuracy as I diminish bias with whatever axis you might have, and gender just being one of them. And so the answer is you can make corrections, but you have to be cognizant that they're there, because unfortunately people say, hey, the model just learned this, and no, it didn't. It learned our biases and laundered them so that we no longer feel responsible for them. And I feel like we should never, ever shift ethics to the computer. And so again, error analysis, Lime, SHAP, and then being able to get the bias versus the accuracy trade-off correct. You can totally do that.
All right.
Did anyone have anything else to say about that? I'm curious if anyone else works in that or does stuff with that.
I would have just said that I think you're on point, and that was a really extensive answer. So,
Yes.
silence.
So from a data perspective, especially in the sort of data I work with the South African population, it's sort of very nicely 50-50 split down the middle on almost everything you want to do. Any problem we want to analyze, gender is always almost 50% split down the middle. So that's not a very useful variable for us to even consider in almost 90% of the occasion time.
But for example, those things can leak into other data. I'll give you an example. In the United States, African Americans are over-policed, and you can see that in the statistics. And the reality is, if you take race out, let's just say you want to make a model to predict where you should go police today. If you take race out of that, just having an address might leak the race information because of the way people have distributed themselves due to various circumstances, whether systemic or not systemic. And so just because you do not use the gender or race or age fields does not mean that data does not leak into the others and produce bias. And so it's cool to have a balance, absolutely. And I love that y'all have that over there, but sometimes it will leak. Features can leak that information.
Yes, but these actual problems also very, very hot topic nowadays in general, all around the AI world. And I know something that is very interesting and maybe people can look up is called Responsible AI of Microsoft, that has the principles written down, how can a system be responsible? And it is a really good read for everyone who wants to write their own AI solutions, and you can try to make it responsible.
Yeah, at Microsoft, we have 6 responsible AI principles that we work towards. They're fairness, reliability and safety, privacy, security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. And we work hard and sometimes maybe we don't do it all the way, and y'all need to call us out on it, because those are our responsible AI principles. And we have an Office of Responsible AI. We have an AI Ethics and Effects and Engineering and Research Committee. We have a Responsible AI Strategy and Engineering. We don't use any of our customers' data. We source our data ethically, free range, artisanal data. I remember one time and this isn't a thread, I don't know if I should be sharing, but it was in a thread like, hey, our Turkish translations are not so good. We need to get more data. And they're like, all right, let's get our vendors to pay them to do the Turkish translation so that we can have more data. And so you got to think about those things now. And if you don't, in Europe at least, because their regulations are a little bit faster than the United States, there's probably going to be regulations in the next 3 to 5 years around how you use data. And then if you're ahead of the curve, then you'll be pretty well off.
But I think it's really kind of awesome that we're at a time when this is kind of a topic that is discussed about openly and really like it's brought up consistently, and people are more aware of this than earlier.
Yeah, it was called bias laundering. If you don't know what that means, the mob back in the days would do money laundering, which is they would take dirty money and they would funnel it through something else, and then it would come out the end of like, oh, this is not bad money anymore because it was actually from this other business. But machine learning can be a bias laundering machine, and we need to be very careful about that.
Thank you for the answers. We have amazing questions still. Like, let me see, the next one is coming from Samhav, and it is like, I am a C#.NET developer with many years of experience. Can I become an AI engineer developer without learning Python, or Python is essential?
It helps. I was a .NET engineer for 10 years too. And learning Python is actually not hard. It's once you get over the tabs thing, it's all turtles all the way down.
Or spaces.
Yeah. Once you know an imperative language, a functional language, and an object-oriented language, they're all the same. I mean, they're all the same. Like Python, the only difference, obviously, I meant dynamic language. If you know JavaScript, Python, you can do kind of similar things. It just looks different. And so the reality is, I know a lot of people. I know there's a lot of C# devs. For example, I'm doing some React stuff, and people keep telling me I should use a Blazor, and I'm like, why? I mean, I like C#. I love it. It's a wonderful ecosystem. I know the people that build it, but learning Python isn't that hard. And if you're a seasoned C# developer, you'd probably be a seasoned Python developer in like a weekend.
I can't answer that question without and stay biased at the same time.
Yeah.
No.
I might be biased, but Python was easy to pick up.
Yes. And it's a really good language for doing AI engineering and data science tasks.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any more comments from our panelists?
Oh yeah, I do need to differentiate between AI model building and AI model consumption, right? As a C# developer, you can totally consume AI models that are built. If you, for example, there's something called the Onyx format. .NET has something in Windows, at least. There's something called the Onyx runtime that will let you abstract away how those things get run for inference, and you can totally with C# load up a model using the Onyx runtime and do inference on it. And so inference for sure. If you're just an AI, if you want to be the AI engineer that uses models, totally fine. If you want to build models, kind of Python feels like that's where the game is. R as well, but maybe not as much.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. But there is a language also called ML.NET that might be something interesting for you.
Yeah, I do have some concerns about ML.NET. But I've already told the team that.
Yes, and let's hope it will be better with time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's but like the newly built, pre-built models are sometimes confused still. So, all right. So, what should be our next question, Håkan?
Yeah, we can actually take this question here. Let me just do like this.
This was
So here's a question from Kevin, who says, do you see companies hiring for ML ops, ML engineering, and data scientists as separate roles, or is there an expectation for having skills in all of those areas?
I'm not sure.
Specifically I can only talk to the South African market, and this whole field is relatively new, just a couple of years old. So generally, it's a combined role. It's not specialized. We don't. You'll get people with the title of the data scientist, but the whole ecosystem falls within their roles, their responsibilities. In fact, maybe 90% of your time will be spent on the engineering portion, and only 10% of your time will be spent as model building.
Yeah, I think I've seen something similar. It is oftentimes combined, I think, because it is kind of still on the rise in popularity, and really like putting effort and getting your own people for it. But then again, I believe that there are some, like, if you want to do like more consultancy style work and like work with different customers, then on that side you might have a more like you're just going to one or the other. But it definitely helps to have skills in both areas.
And I think the reality in the field is that data scientists spend 80% of their time cleaning data, and then 20% building models.
All right, thank you for your answers. I think we could go ahead and ask a few not that technical questions. For example, this one from Gabriel. Like, what would you suggest to do to promote an AI culture in an organization that is not data-driven?
I would start with doing dashboards, like the Power BI dashboards, and get your folks to start looking at data. There's a term for that, the Power BI stuff. What is that called? Oh, shoot, there's a word for it. But once your organization is very good at analytics, making the machine learning jump is very small. So, for example, the first thing you do is like, hey, I want us to be more metrics driven as an organization, and then start looking around for where your data is and start building charts and say, look, this is where we're trending, or this is how much output we've done, or this is the dashboard I built. Going from dashboards to machine learning is not a hard jump, in my opinion. So I would start with an analytics platform to just analyze your data. That's it. And then show it, and then have people look at it. And then once you get there, you're probably 80% of the way there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. And then once you get people to see the data, and sometimes it helps to see that quality of the data, and sometimes it helps to see actual like what's happening. But after people see it, then it's like this whole excitement starts to build around it, and it's like, well, we want more dashboards. What else can we do? So you kind of get people jump started and interested in the topic and really wanting to also push it forward themselves.
Okay, any other comments from JP or Wei-Meng?
No.
No? All right, then we can move on to our next question, which is going to come from Stephen. So when was the last time you did something for the first time? I love this question.
Right now, this is the first time I've been in a panel on AI 42.
Oh, yes. I think
the technical thing, it was last night when I'm learning how to do Next.js with React and Tailwind CSS. So that was last night.
Nice. How about you, Heini?
Well, today I was using Lerna on a monorepo. That was the first time I was doing that. So
what is that?
Lerna, yeah.
Lerna. I want to look that up.
What is that?
It helps you manage, if you have a monorepo structure, it helps you manage that for Node projects, I believe.
Oh my goodness, this is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient now that I have tried it.
Nice. So,
what
JP?
I'm trying to think here. And the closest I can come, if you want to talk this on a technology or language based, is about 2 weeks ago, I had to, for the first time in my life, weirdly enough, for someone that works with data for the past 10 plus years, only is I worked with MySQL for the first time. And I'm not a fan, I must say. I'm not a fan. But it's an interesting experience. I understand why I pay Microsoft so much to enjoy the benefits of everything else.
Thank you for that on behalf of
Cool.
I used my ESQL one time, and I used a small int for my auto incrementing integer, and it kept breaking at 128. And I was like, why does this keep breaking? It was me. That's how big the integer was. I still remember to say why. I just couldn't understand why it was breaking, and then I figured it out. Nerf.
Yes.
I was younger then.
Those issues are always amazing. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay. So how about you, Wei-Meng?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer because I do new things every day. So I seriously, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that question. Yeah. Can I pass on this question?
No,
Well,
you are required.
it's not really nice to pass a question like that. No.
It's actually a difficult question. Like,
Yeah, maybe we should ask Stephen back the question.
Yeah.
What did you do
Yes,
something
that's
new for the
true.
first time? Or maybe did he eat durian for the first time in his life?
And maybe
Do you
the
know what-
entire audience, actually.
yeah.
That would be nice to read, yes. I'm really interested.
we
And
We
Yes,
still have
sorry,
some
go ahead.
interesting question here. So we have one.
I have to drop
From-
after this question, if that's okay.
Okay, so we'll take this last one. Are there any certifications you would like to recommend to jumpstart your career in AI?
I'm going to go with what the panelists said here is like have a project and let that be your badge of certification. I built this thing. Oh, let me look at it. That I don't know if there's like industry good certificates. Like I'm a data scientist too. I don't even know what that means. Like what would that even mean?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Same here.
All right, friends, I got to hop off. It's been wonderful to meet all of you. Hopefully we get to hang out again soon, okay?
Yes.
yes,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think with that, we could also say goodbye to all of our speakers. I think it was an amazing discussion today. I learned a lot about you all, and it was really exciting to hear your opinions about all these things, and also to learn from you so much in the past few months. And I'm very, very thankful for all the content you provided us and that you joined us today as well and supported us the whole time. So thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. It was awesome experience. As
Yes.
was awesome organizers, and thank you for organizing this for the community as well.
Exactly. It was really great to meet you all. Also, the other presenters.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so with that said, we can thank you, the audience, too. And
Yes.
and
And before we all go to summer vacation, we also have to mention that after the summer vacation, we come back with a lot more content of AI 42, and you'll get to know more about what kind of tools you can use for the different solutions you want to build in the field of data and AI. And the cool thing about the next part of the year is that we're coming back first with a mini conference on the 8th of September, where you will hear some industry stories. You will hear some real big projects and like real usage of AI in the real life usage of machine learning. And I think with that, I really hope that we will meet again when the summer break is over. And thank you a lot for joining us today as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
summer. Bye-bye.
Winter break for us down there. But cheers. Right?
Bye bye.
Take care.